a lot to get to. Anything change yet officially when it comes to the Pac, whatever number you want to put in, and the Mountain West Conference? It appears as if now Air Force and UNLV have made the decision to stay. I don't know if everything has been signed because that still has to be done, but it looks as if the Mountain West Conference is pretty good shape, at least as of right now.
If they get UNLV and Air Force locked down, now they have to go get an 8th. I don't know, especially after talking to John Wilner yesterday, why they don't merge and why they can't figure that out, because to me that would set them up better. But if they don't want to, they don't want to, so it's not going to happen. So now it's the battle for that 8th school. And, Texas State's sitting in a good spot. I'm sure there's a lot of UConn talk out there, which wouldn't seem to make very much sense to me at all. But you got to get to 8 somehow, and there's teams out there. But now both of them appear to be – it's tied 7-7, and so we'll see how they get to 8, each of them.
I thought I saw something, and I was on my way, Craig, you can correct me if I'm wrong, that the Mountain West needs 2 more. That they're actually – that they need 2 more, even with Air Force and also UNLV, at least it appears, if everyone signs, staying within the Mountain West Conference. But again, it's up and down. It's the roller coaster that has been for the last 2 or 3 days.
Well, yeah, I just think the big significant thing is, there's certainly still things to finalize and also to flesh out further and to finish for both conferences in terms of their members. But I think the big thing from last night, obviously, is that UNLV and Air Force, let it be known that they weren't going to change. I mean, That's the big one, because if you're the Pac-12, which they're obviously not going to be the Pac-12 at this point, so I think I'm just going to start calling them the Pac, because the number thing's just not jiving anymore. But if you're the Pac, I think you're just gobsmacked at what has occurred over the last week or so, when you had the big triumphant release of, here's the full 4 schools that are going to be joining us, and this is just the first step. And then it felt as though they were going to be able to go and kind of pick and choose who they wanted to bring in. Obviously didn't want the full Mountain West league itself from top to bottom, wanted to go cherry pick the top teams. And if they were going to do that in the American, they wanted to do that. The American, though, quickly shut its doors and put bars in the windows and let it be known that none of their schools are going to be leaving. So it's led to this just showdown with the Mountain West. It's gone back and forth a couple of times this week. And then, sure enough, you've got now the full pledge of UNLV and Air Force to remain in the Mountain West, whereas they had, sort of backed away from the original agreement because Utah State had taken their name out of the hat and decided to join the Pac, and that left everything back into, uncertainty. But now this is a huge moment for the Mountain West Conference, and it's a big fork in the road for this new Pac, because I don't think you thought you'd be in this position. I think you thought you'd probably be filled up by now, and it wouldn't have been this difficult. Maybe I'm wrong on that, but I don't know. I know certainly the fans seem like they are puzzled about what's next and certainly annoyed by what's occurred so far. As fun as that original announcement was, everything that's happened since, you've added Boise and San Diego State and so on, has been basically no's from everybody else, and then some flip-flopping of a no, well, maybe, and then no again. And so I don't know where they turn, but Texas State's a team that Paul mentioned. UTEP, another school that probably gets some further looks. UTSA, but I don't know. Not UTSA, they're in the American. But
I wonder if Tarleton State gets contacted.
But perhaps Tarleton, I was just thinking about Texas. But obviously UTSA has already decided to stay in the American, where they just joined. It's a fork in the road for the Pac, and the Mountain West still has some work to do as well, but they're sitting in much better shape than you thought they might be.
Well, here's Brett. This is Russ Dellinger. This is like really just a few seconds ago. The 6 remaining full members of the Mountain West, including UNLV and Air Force, have signed the binding commitment. So that's done. The Mountain West is expected to later release per school tiered distribution of signing bonuses derived from the Pac-12 exit fees, which you wonder how much of that they'll actually get, or will some of that be settled? So that's being money promised that I don't know what it's going to be. The remaining unsigned Mountain West member is Hawaii. As a partial member in football, Hawaii does not impact the Mountain West Conference agreement, as all full members have signed, according to those familiar with the terms. Hawaii plans to sign the agreement with the Mountain West to remain a member in football. That means all 7 would be signed. Hawaii officials and those from the Pac-12 held conversations about membership in the last day, but the league did not extend an invitation.
Yeah, so basically where we are right now is UNLV are staying with the Mountain West and Air Force as well, and so they are at 6 full members, and you've got the Pac at 7 full members. So they need 1 more. The Mountain West needs 2 more. That was my last check. If something's happened between now and then that is news to me because I've been running some errands, but I believe that's where we are at this point. You need 3 more schools for between the 2 of them, 2 for the Mountain West and 1 for the Pac. I believe that's where we are. So, yeah, UTEP and whoever else you want to throw into that mix that's currently free to move around a little bit, especially a school that's in the state of Texas would seem to make sense. But, yeah, it's been an interesting round of musical chairs, an interesting round of what's the word? Not realignment, but what was the word I was using earlier today when we were talking about, or not earlier, but earlier this week, that Brett McMurphy and them were always not retraction, but consolidation is the word. Thank you, guys. Consolidation is the word I'm thinking of.
Well, we both said it out loud.
Yeah.
You just didn't hear us.
Yeah.
But that's
thinking it.
That was the word I'm looking for. So the consolidation is happening, and we'll see who gets the next phone call. But it's been interesting to watch this. I know it's not of the level of, what's happening to the ACC schools one moment or the Big Ten scooping up Pac schools or any other variation that we've seen. There's multiple ones that we've seen over the last couple of years, but it is that level below, and so it's still of interest to me just to kind of see where it all sits, and certainly with a lot of Texas programs involved, I'm just interested in that aspect of it as well.
All right, we'll have Sam Kahn at 3:30, Max Olson today at 4. We have BYU football coach Kalani Sitake today just after 5. Those are the guests we have today, and Mickey Spagnola, Cowboys up in New Jersey against the Giants. He'll join us from MetLife Stadium around 5:30 or so. So last night, late, right before I went to bed, the story about Air Force and UNLV, Brett McMurphy had that, and then many others did. Amanda Kristovich also earlier saying, hey, wait a minute, they all have to sign just because now all of a sudden Air Force and UNLV are happy, joy. That doesn't mean that it's a done deal, but now those have been signed. And then Mike Craven, Paul, you had this one and Craig, you mentioned the Texas State active discussions with the Pac-12 Mountain West and even the AAC about conference moves. They're right now a part of what is the Sun Belt. Am I right?
Yes.
Yes. And so it's moving parts as everybody tries to jockey for position.
So Texas State's in a great spot here in that they can either trick the Sun Belt into giving them more money because they may or may not really want to leave.
Right.
Or one of these other 3 conferences is going to offer them a better deal than what they had. So good time to be Texas State right now and maybe hop into another conference.
It also might be a pretty good time for Sacramento State. Have you seen this? Garrett, I sent this to you, that Ross Dellinger had the note that they have announced they've secured millions in funding for a new football stadium as part of a public pursuit of Pac-12 membership, a business leaders across the region decision to join efforts to elevate Sac State to the Pac-12. Here is a picture of the stadium, the drawings of what they would like to put together. Whether that happens or not remains to be seen, but good luck to them. Anytime somebody wants to try to make that move, it is not easy. It costs a ton of money.
Yeah, I mean, maybe this is just for pure fundraising efforts to rally the troops and say, like, hey, we need your money for this stadium so we can get a conference invite. That'd be smart if that's what it is, or maybe that's really just all it is and that's, what you need to do. But respectfully, I don't think that's really scratching anybody's itch, but there are 2 conferences that need members. So, yeah, I mean, everybody's got to get their ducks in a row if they're hoping to possibly make a move from Sacramento State to Texas State. And there's 3 out there that are going to get phone calls and invitations to fill out these leagues. But you do roll back around to the question, and I know what the answer to this question is, but really when we're at this point and it's like a week later and why didn't you not just merge? I know the answer why, because of the bottom schools in the Mountain West, but man, this just seems like it would have been such a more simple answer to everybody's problems. Sure, it would have thrown some new problems on some other schools, but that's how you would have created the best league possible. not the way that this is unfolded for either side. So I think that's unfortunate that it couldn't have been just that simple. Instead, there's a lawsuit between the two now.
Oh, yeah.
Instead of a merger, they've got a lawsuit to deal with. We'll see what happens with that. But, it's been an interesting dominoes effect here over the last few days, just watching the decisions flip back and forth and just both trying to scrounge together what they can to try to get where they need to be considered, at a certain level.
The Mountain West Conference may have at least dodged this bullet, but they still haven't completely survived because they lost 4 teams. I mean, they had some top-tier teams in their conference depart, but they at least appear to have reacted to what was the takeover attempt by the Pac-12.
My question for the Pac-12 schools and for the Mountain West is,
why didn't they merge?
Why did they merge? But when Craig says, the bottom schools in the Mountain West are not attractive to them, who do you think you are right now?
Yeah.
That you can just, turn your nose up at something.
Especially when you have 2 teams that are the core of the Pac whatever who had people turn their nose up on them.
Yes.
Yeah.
It's hypocrisy at its highest level that you're sitting here going, well, no, they're not good enough for us right now. Well, I mean, anything should be good enough for you right now. You can go to the bar looking for a Kate Upton lookalike, but at the end of the night, if she didn't say no, if you're going to go home with somebody, you got to pick someone. You can't just sit there and go, well, no, I'll wait and wait. I think that's just kind of silly that they wouldn't do this because, again, I think if you take a 14-team conference and then maybe even add a Texas State to it, get to a 16-team league that puts you on par with all the other leagues size-wise, then you that chance to get in the playoff and to get more money and have more television exposure, at least to me, grows. I don't know. I'm far from an expert, I guess.
Metal, who is a diehard Memphis fan.
Boise State, too.
And Boise State. Washington State and Oregon State need to learn their place. They are not on Boise State or San Diego State's level. No one wants them. Metal. Those 2 schools you just brought up joined the conference that Washington State and Oregon State are in.
Yeah, they just invited you and allowed you to join the Pac-12.
It wasn't the opposite way.
Yeah.
And I think we're just kind of splitting hairs or whatever you want to say on who is whom.
But that kind of talk is going to make that new Pac very spicy if you feel that way. It's going to make for some really interesting games between those 4 schools. But, yeah, I mean, they actually were the ones that kept the Pac intact and allowed this to even be a conversation. So, yeah, I don't know that I'd take that stance necessarily. I did agree with you with the first part of kind of needing to know who you are a little bit. And let's face it, that's the tough pill to swallow here. Those 2 schools they got thrown over the side of the ship. And they were the only 2. And they had to share a life raft between the 2 of them, basically. They were out there in the middle of the darkness just floating by themselves. And luckily a ship eventually came along in the form of this settlement with the Pac-12, and they're back on a big old boat. But the problem is they don't have a whole lot of precious cargo to put on board. And they're trying their best, but the reality of it is they're just not ever going to be able, at least right now, to get back to where they were in the immediate future. It's going to take a little while. And I don't know how exactly you map that back because I don't know where college football is headed ultimately. But I do think, they're just trying to do their best and trying to be where they are. And unfortunately, the reality is no, I think you got demoted. And I don't know how to tell you that or react to that. But I think that's set in for some Beavers and Wild Cougars fans, when they've started to see this sort of come together. I've seen several of them who are wait, this is what we did with the war chest, or wait, this is what, this is, and people are I'm not going to be a fan anymore. And so it's just a really rough time, and it's a real hard reality check because the only consolidation that's really happened has been you guys getting extricated from the Power 5, basically. Mm-hmm. Yeah. Everybody else in your league found homes, and they're in one of the 4. And then you had this opportunity to try and do what you can, and it's very clearly not going to measure up to those other leagues. So you got demoted. And that's a really tough pill to swallow. So I feel for those fan bases. Yeah. And I know they're not going to settle for that, but it's all you can really do right now is settle for that.
Craig brings up a kind of an interesting point here about where they think they are and where they actually are. Craig, you and I both watch Welcome to Wrexham. And one of the most interesting facts.
Is that a soccer team?
Yeah. So it's the one that Ryan Reynolds and Rob McElhenney bought in Wales. And so one of the interesting things about the documentary in this most recent season is They finally got promoted. They're in League Two, then they go to League One, and then Championship and Premier League. Well, they're not going to just go year to year. Like, to do what they need to do, they need a whole lot more capital inflection to get from the Championship to the Premier League when they get there. And so you can jump up the other ones for about $10 million a year, right? So that's the money you need to kind of, buy the talent, get the things to do to reasonably do it in a year-by-year thing. But once you get to the Championship League, like you've talking about getting to the Premier League, where these teams and these owners are worth billions of dollars. So it's not $10 million you got to spend. It's like $200 million you have to spend over 7 to 10 years.
Yep.
So whatever this play is that the Pac is making, they need to make sure it's the best long term and not
just to get through.
Not just to get through, because it's not going to. They're not going to wake up tomorrow and be in the Premier League. That's not what's going to happen.
Right. Ron W., by the way, on the Sacramento State stadium picture, that's a current picture. They would definitely get rid of the track if they plan to move up, because the track, of course, separates the stadium, the fans, from closer to being on the field. So they appreciate that. Here's what's interesting to me is that you have it's like a fight for survival. But it seems like this is where both conferences are not any better off than they have been. They are both still weak. And it doesn't mean they can't get through it now. I'm not saying that, but Daniel brought this up. Don't they still have to ask about whether or not they're a P5? We need to make this clear. There is no really P5. There is really no P4. You hear the Autonomy 4, which is the ACC, the SEC, the Big Ten, and the Big 12, but that's really a media narrative. That's a media narrative. That is like, for example, the 4 highest-ranked conference champions. Everyone immediately thinks it's those 4 because those are the 4 what are monetarily the largest of the conferences. But that doesn't mean that they're guaranteed a college football playoff top 4, because, again, a group of 5 can slide in there and be ranked ahead of one of those. But P5, we get it what it means. Well, let me finish. I'm trying to explain what I'm saying. The P5 and the term P4 or Autonomy 4 is really just a narrative that the media has made up. It's not really something that's anywhere in writing.
Yeah, it's just a group that has basically the ability to set their rules. And so that's what it is. It's not about like the top whatever. I mean, they're the top money-making conferences, and clearly 2 of them make more money than the others, but it's more about like the ability to have a say in the rules and things like that. So there is a power to it that the other leagues don't have, but it's not but yeah, in some ways it is a media term.
Yeah, well, and the other thing is you can't just say that you're one because you were in one before. Like, that's the other thing. Like, you can't just do it. Everybody has to
like Washington State and
Oregon.
Yeah,
they can't just say that they are now again because the Pac once was.
Yeah, so I wanted to make sure we a lot of misinformation about the college football playoff, that those 4 it's the highest ranking conference champions, but it doesn't have to necessarily be what is considered one of the 4 major conferences that automatically gets in. You win the Big 12, you're getting in. I get that. But as far as the highest ranked 4 that get the first round buys. Don Corleone curbing Sonny in Godfather 1. What the hell is he talking about? That's from retired stockbroker.
Well, he didn't curb him.
UT parking, it would take a statistical anomaly for a Power 4 conference champion to be left out of the playoff. Won't ever happen.
Yeah, no, it would. I mean, they're not like it's the highest ranked 5 or champions or whatever it is. So yeah, it would take a conference, one of those 4, having a colossally bad season, like a colossally bad season, and even then, let's just say that a 7-5 team comes in second in the ACC and beats the 10-2 team,
or a 12-0 team,
or 11-1 team in the championship game, then they're going. But like they may not go because they'd be ranked lower. But then the 12-0 team would still probably go, and you'd still have a team in there because that would be their first loss. So
in the
statistical
end,
anomaly is right.
What's so interesting about this, and the fact that the Pac-12 or whatever you call them is suing the Mountain West. The Mountain West did not have to accept any kind of scheduling agreement, right? They probably had just enough games, but they They threw a life raft to the Pac-12. And it also helped the Mountain West. It did. But it's so weird how you just can't trust anybody when it comes to survival, not just in college football and conference, et cetera, but really in anything in particular. Steve Sarkisian, I haven't seen anything new about this, but has he made any kind of decision on if Quinn Ewers is going to play?
No, he said today that he's not sure who the starter is going to be. I don't know why you need to push it with Quinn Ewers for another week. I would roll out there with Arch one more time because you've got Mississippi State, then the bye, then you've got Oklahoma. I'd rather have him completely healthy and not worried about it because I don't think they need Quinn to beat Mississippi State, Craig.
Yeah, I don't think there's any sense of urgency. Just get him fully healthy. You got Red River here coming up around the corner. You don't have any real threats on your schedule. And Mississippi State doesn't even have Blake Shapen at this point. Not that even when they did, they were all that good to begin with. So, I think just give Quinn as much time as you can possibly give him. This is a luxury to have Arch Manning and allow him to have all of this time to play and get experience and maybe even some others as well, just depending on whether or not these games continue to be the types of blowouts that they have been for Texas, and certainly this one's expected to be this weekend based on the line that we've seen. So, it just means more. It doesn't mean much because Mississippi State, anybody to be the dogs that they are, that's a testament to how good Texas is. But still, when you hear that whole blah, 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 SEC type of thing, and you're like, really? Teams that are 35-point underdogs or, whatever the hell the number is? I know that's a compliment to Texas, but, please, man, that's ridiculous. That is ridiculous.
I asked this question earlier, and I don't know the answer. I didn't look it up. Has Texas ever been a 40-point favorite against anybody in the Big 12? During their entire –
yeah, I'm sure that
maybe Kansas.
Or Baylor.
Yeah, back in the days.
That's
a lot, man. That's a huge number, 40, 35, whatever it might be. Paxton's saying that they will make the decision, at least that's what's been said by Sarkisian, announce the decision tomorrow. You know what you don't do, though? No matter what you think of Mississippi State, and even a bye week after that, you don't just say, we're going to rest him because we don't need him. Can you really do that in sports? That's a dangerous thing to say. Well, we're good enough, we don't need him. Because what if Arch Manning goes down?
Well, you can always have, I would start Arch Manning, and then if Arch Manning gets hurt, if Quinn Ewers is good enough to go in there, then put him in there.
But if he's good enough to go in there, then he should start.
Well, I guess. I would start Arch Manning.
Not really. Why?
Yeah, you don't have to.
I'm saying what coaches have told me in the past is if a player is available to play and is capable of playing, you don't sit him or not based on who you're playing. It's just kind of a dangerous precedent.
Okay, if that's the way that it is, so be it. But I don't think you're in any rush to throw Quinn Ewers back out there. But I'm not Steve Sarkisian, and I don't know his health, and I don't know what they're looking to do. So, it's a nice spot to be in for Texas.
Paxton's saying that there was a very large spread, 2005 Baylor against Texas.
Well, that's the one I'm looking up. Yeah. I'm not sure. I can't find it just yet, but Texas won that game 62-0.
Yeah.
So,
and a lot of people beat them back then, probably by that score.